All right, so we will get started. Um, Today we're going to be talking about AI, more specifically Copilot, and we'll get into why Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's AI offering. If you haven't been part of these before, welcome. This will be recorded. It will be available on our website afterwards. So if you want to share it with somebody else in your company that wasn't able to join today, you'll have the ability to do so. During the presentation, ask questions. In Zoom, there's a Q&A button, and you can click on that Q&A button. You can type your question in, and we'll answer those live-ish, like as they fit into the presentation, or any that are left at the end. We'll of course go over them at the end. So feel free to post those in. Jamie will also email a link to the recording to all registrants. So today's presentation, Unlocking AI for Every Business, and these are what we consider practical steps to get started, right? So AI, what you'll find is that there are some underlying components that are really required for it to be effective and for you to be able to use it effectively. So we we've just decided to start developing a roadmap to AI rather than just saying, well, we can just enable this and have it be something that you can immediately start using. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about Copilot. We're going to give an overview of that. We're going to talk about some licensing with Office applications, the basic and advanced agent functions that it has, advanced agentic agents with human in the loop, some real world use cases that we're using at CIO, and some recommendations for customers today so they have something that they can go away and think about. Like this with many other things, if you're a CIO customer, reach out to your VCIO. We're all having these conversations with customers as they come up and they fit in naturally. So we can talk more specifically about you. This will be more of a general overview, of course. Okay, so Copilot, we're going to talk about licensing access and how to access the app. So Copilot is really any AI-powered feature within the Microsoft ecosystem. So Copilot is a brand, a name that Microsoft came up with, similar to how Apple has Siri or Google has Gemini or Elon has Grok, right? They all have a bunch of names associated with them. So what you'll find is Copilot is present throughout the Microsoft ecosystem. There's a Copilot button on your desktop computer. There's one inside Office apps. There's one in the web. It's kind of all over. So Copilot is really the brand for Microsoft's AI agent. It is integrated into the Microsoft 365 ecosystem pretty heavily. You can access it via the web. You can access it via SharePoint, which is Microsoft's file storage solution. You can access it in Microsoft Teams. You can access it in some of the individual Office apps, like I'm using PowerPoint today. There is a Copilot companion for PowerPoint. There's also one in Outlook. There's also one in Microsoft Word, in Excel. And of course, there's different functionalities in, each of those apps based on what type of app it is. So, for example, in PowerPoint, I might ask it, hey, make me an agenda slide, and it'll look through the PowerPoint presentation and construct an agenda slide for me. In Excel, I might ask it to look at a set of data and give me a summary of that data or an export of that data or help me to develop a pivot table. And, it can do those functions as well. So Copilot's capabilities vary based on the application that you're using it in. So,
Yeah, Microsoft is continually trying to develop new ways to bring it in. In fact, one of the ways that they've recently released was within Excel, you can even call Copilot as a function now. So if you do equals Copilot and then parentheses, you can start to like use that to have it do on the fly lookups and things like that. So they're constantly evolving this.
mhm. Yeah, and that goes into the why Copilot. Why are we talking about Copilot and not Gemini, Grok, ChatGPT, a variety of other things? Well, most of our customers are in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And Microsoft 365 is, a series of applications, the Office apps, as well as an email hosting platform, as well as a file storage platform in SharePoint, a collaboration platform in Teams. And, more than 50% of CIO customers are in 365, with more of them going towards it every single year. So Copilot is really embedded in the Microsoft ecosystem. There is a, we'll use the word free in air quotes, free version of Copilot that you get by being a Microsoft 365 customer. And Copilot has these enterprise data protections. And this is a big thing for, if you're putting data in that is proprietary to your business, that has to do with your customers, that has to do with, anything that you maybe don't want out in the general public. Microsoft will keep your data safe as long as you're an Office 365 customer, and you have something called a BAA or Business Associates Agreement with Microsoft. Especially if you're a HIPAA customer, you're probably familiar with those. But that's basically there's a written agreement between you and Microsoft as a customer that states the protections they put in place to, keep your data safe and secure. Um,
Yeah, the enterprise data protections, it really talks to whether or not the large language model is able to be trained off of your data. And
mhm.
this is where Microsoft, I think, has positioned themselves really well. They work the underlying, and we'll get into the large language models and what those are, but the one that you probably have heard is ChatGPT. There's a few others out there as well. And if you just go to their sites directly, they can use the data to train the large language model. The enterprise data protections don't allow that. So it does need to submit the data that you're querying about, but then it immediately deletes that data from the large language model so that your proprietary AI or your proprietary information is not being trained by the large language models.
Yep. And we did have a question here. Is the data privacy protection by default? And the answer is yes, it is, as long as you're a Microsoft 365 customer. So if you're a 365 customer and you have a 365 license, even for like regular Office applications, email hosting, any of those things, anytime you're interacting with Copilot, you'll see there's a little green shield up in the top, usually the top right-hand corner, and it'll say enterprise data protection is active. All Microsoft customers have a BAA in place, and Microsoft has made a commitment to keep your data safe. Um, so licensing and access. Now, really, there are a couple different licensing tiers. We're going to be talking about the most often used ones. There are some custom ones as well if you get into the developer side of it. But almost all licenses include what they call Copilot Chat. And Copilot Chat will give you a web grounded response. So this would be a very similar thing to ChatGPT if you've ever used ChatGPT before, right? You go to ChatGPT's website, you're left with an AI agent. You can type in a question, it queries the web, and it returns responses. So Microsoft has this as well. You can get it by going to office.com and clicking on the Copilot side, Copilot icon on the side of your screen, and it'll bring up a very similar web prompt to what you've seen with, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Grok, etc. So this is included in almost every single Microsoft 365 license. So most of your users at your companies, if you're an Office 365 customer, and I'm looking through the attendees here, a lot of you are, you can just go to office.com, you can immediately start using that. Then Microsoft has an add-in. And this add-in is $30 per user per month, but it is an annual commitment. So basically, we sign up for paying them $360 over the course of a year, and that gets billed to the customer at $30 per user per month. And that is an annual commitment to have a Copilot license. Now that license, you're stuck with it for a year, but you can move it around from user to user if you wanted multiple people to try it. You're not forced to do it for your entire company all at once or those things. But what I am seeing is usually 10 to 15% of the user base at a particular company ends up with the license long term. What this does is it gives you work grounded reasoning. So that means that it can pull from your Office 365 data that you, the user, have access to. So that could be files in SharePoint, that could be files in Teams, that could be chats or meetings that you've had in Microsoft Teams. That is your email inbox or any other email accounts that you might have access to. So if you have access to a shared, I don't know, procurement mailbox or an accounts payable mailbox, it would be able to return results from those. It would also be able to return results from any files that live in SharePoint or OneDrive. And it does all of this in the user permissions context. So if I ask it a question and Sean asks it a question, we might actually get different results because I have permissions to some documents, and Sean, as a director, actually has permissions to more documents or different documents than I do, right? So our results might be slightly different, but you get results that are grounded in work rather than grounded in the web and asking the general internet for a response. So it's a pretty cool add-on. You also get the embedded Copilot in all of your Office apps. So when you open up Microsoft Word, there's a Copilot button. You can click on that and it will work with and manipulate that document that you're there writing. Or when you're in Excel, you can click on the Copilot button and it will work with that Excel spreadsheet that you have there. If you're in Outlook, you can click on Copilot and you could say, hey, I want you to draft a response. Or I already drafted a response. I want you to make this more professional or more personal or more casual or longer or shorter and have it kind of manipulate your writing. I found that those things actually work really well. The most useful one, in my opinion, right now is inside Microsoft Teams. When you've got Copilot enabled and you're having a Microsoft Teams meeting, and you are, in the middle of a meeting, you can ask Copilot to give a list of follow-up items, to show who's assigned particular tasks, to catch you up. Like maybe you join a meeting late because your last meeting ran long, and now they're 10 minutes into the meeting, and you're like not sure what's been discussed or hasn't been discussed. I use Catch Me Up all the time. And Copilot will go through, it'll look at the transcription from the meeting that has happened up until this point, and it will return results from that. I found that really, really useful myself personally. This is how you would access it. So the web-based version, you can go to cloud.microsoft, m365.cloud.microsoft. You can go to office.microsoft.com. You can type in office.com. Any of the ways that you get to the normal Office 365 login, you'll see right on the left-hand side, there's a button for Copilot and you've got a chat. And in here, you can message Copilot. You'll see at the top, there's this toggle that says work or web. You won't have that toggle unless you have the Copilot for Microsoft add-on license. Um, so normally you would just have the web and you would be asking questions that are answered by the web. When you add on that add-on license, then you get the ability to return results from work.
Jeff, one thing to add there too is the little plus that you see in our message Copilot right in the middle. That does allow you, even with the web version, to like select a file that you might be working on or a document and have it answer questions for you about that document. And you can do that in normal chat or the full 365 version as well. Um, can you point out to that little green shield in the top right corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the enterprise data protections indicator. So you see that, and that tells you that you are protected. Your data is protected there.
hmm And then, like I mentioned, if you have the 365 add-on license, you get it directly in your Office app. So here's a screenshot from inside PowerPoint, and you can see right over here, there's a Copilot button on the ribbon, and it opens up a side pane, and you can work with it directly in the Office application. And like I said, in PowerPoint, I like to ask it to apply like a templated color backgrounds, those types of things, like more of the design things. I also like to have it do agenda slides. It works well for that. So just some ways to make you a little bit more efficient and remove some of the monotonous tasks. Copilot capabilities. So it has ChatGPT and common AI functions where you can ask it a question similar to how you would ChatGPT. It has access to corporate data in the same permission set as the user that's actually running these questions or asking these questions. So SharePoint, OneDrive, Microsoft Teams messages, Outlook, your email mailbox, or any mailboxes that you have access to. Supports both basic and advanced agents. And there's a security benefit for business use that we've already discussed. So now we're going to talk about Copilot agents. So this is a little bit different than the free form text. We're going to just ask it a question. This is creating an agent that has a specific business function. And it's really a more advanced use of AI. So a basic agent We created an HR bot. This was an example that we made. So when you have the Copilot licensing enabled, so if people have the add-on licenses for the Copilot for Microsoft 365, they have the ability to create an agent. So this is the button that's in SharePoint. There's also a button right in the main Copilot screen. If we go back here, you'll see where it says Create Agent over here in purple. So you get it both in the web as well as inside like SharePoint and some other applications. And you can create an agent or you can and you can have that agent do a specific task. So we created one for HR. And basically what we said is you are an HR agent. You have access to specific data. So in this case, CIO solutions, policies, and procedures. This is a PDF doc. I want to say it's like 100 pages long. And then our CIO employee handbook. And that handbook lists all kinds of different things, PTO, how to request time off, our acceptable use policies, like all of the normal things that you would expect an HR handbook to have, right? So we created this agent, and now I can go into it and I can ask it questions in free text, and it will return results from those two documents. Now, it doesn't really have the ability to hallucinate or come up with its own answers to these questions. It's grounded in the data that we gave it, these two PDF documents. So something that you might have seen in the past, if you've used, OpenAI, ChatGPT, some of these web-based AI agents, is you might ask it a question, and it might return a response that is not true because the AI isn't necessarily smart enough to know that it's not true. Does that make sense? Like a great example would be if you go into Google and you ask the question, "Are the pools on the Titanic filled right now with water?" It will say, "No, they're not." Because the boat cracked in half and it couldn't possibly hold the water, and they didn't have the time to refill the pools before it sank. But the Titanic is underwater. Like, so it doesn't know the actual answer. It's hallucinating an answer based on the data that it has given to it, right? So with an agent, you can ground that agent in particular data and you can say, you're only allowed to return results from this policies and procedures and this CIO handbook. And now you have this agent that anybody in your organization can work with and talk to. You can create advanced agents from something called Copilot Studio. So copilotstudio.microsoft.com will take you to the web page where you can do that. And I'll give you a quick demo here, or let me pull this up. Just give me 1 second, and I'm going to switch my screen share. All right. And Copilot works on anything. You'll see I'm on a Mac. Works on here as well. So here is our CIO HR agent that we were just talking about. This was created in Copilot Studio. So this is what Copilot Studio looks like, and this is really what like a developer would be using within your organization. So we can click in here and we can say, what are you? You are an HR agent. Your job is to answer user questions about HR from the employee handbook. Use generative AI to determine how to best respond to users. And then these are the data sets that it's grounded in. And you can add specific triggers, you can add specific tools or other agents that are connected to it. So here is an example of the HR agent, 2025 virtual assistant. I sometimes use AI to answer your questions. If you provide a website during creation, try to ask me about it. So I can say something like, when is my next vacation day? And it will look at the data that it has access to, and it will return a result. Oh, well, it's asking about PTO.
Try the word holiday
Yeah, when
instead.
is my next? And you can see kind of what it's doing in the back end here. The next company holiday for CIS Solutions, New Year's, January 1st, 2025, applies to both US and Costa Rica. Please refer to publish holiday schedules for any updates or changes. And we can go in here and see, the policies. Um, so it's pretty easy to create an agent. You can say what type of agent it is. say, yeah, I want to create a new agent. You can name your agent, describe your agent, give it instructions, and then this is where you would add knowledge like those PDFs that we added in. We can say, is it allowed to search the web or not? And then you can even add suggested prompts to give people an idea of what they should be saying to this agent. How do you interact with me? What are the things you should be asking me for? Um, Sean actually made a really cool agent in our Copilot. Um, So again, just go to office.com. We can see our agents over here on the side. So he made this agent for our CIO tech stack. So CIO has a stack of equipment that we sell. We sell Juniper switches, we sell Palo Alto firewalls, we sell WatchGuard firewalls. So those stacks are ever changing. There's always new products, there's always new capabilities, and not everybody knows all of the SKUs off the top of their head and all that kind of stuff. So I can actually say to this, I need a switch that has 48 ports and supports stacking. And it will return results from data that Sean has grounded this in, which is all of the data sheets from all of our vendors on what would be the best choice for this for somebody to, quote or propose to a customer. And it does take a minute. Looking for 40 sources, support stacking, Cisco Catalyst 1300, Cisco Business 350, those both do. Support stacking up to 8 switches, supports true stacking, Juniper 4600, 4650. The Catalyst 1200 does not work, not supported. So pretty cool. Gives us some simple results. It lessens the learning curve for a new employee that might be working with our products for the first time. And again, we've grounded this data in a bunch of data sheets that we were able to download from the manufacturer website. So, a couple hours goes into creating this agent, but now the entire company can use it. Sean has shared this agent out to our entire department, and we can all work with it together.
There's a couple other agents there that I just wanted to point out real quick too. The researcher one that was at the top there, and analyst. So these are built, I think, by Microsoft, and they kind of are available automatically. Researcher is one where it really does a lot of digging and will, scour the web and things like that. So if you have a really detailed question that you need really long form answers for, researcher is a good place to go. And then I think the analyst is better at doing processes like evaluating data sets and things like that, where you want to find insights. And so some of those are already created and available to you to use. There's that link for all agents. There's other agents that are out there too that have already been created. So there's this is kind of a burgeoning environment for people to be able to find things that are tuned to specific needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I used Researcher. So I had a meeting with a customer to talk about, I don't see it here. That was a little while ago. But I had a meeting with a customer to talk about Dragon. So Dragon is a software from a company called Nuance, and it's a dictation software. So doctors talk to Dragon, lawyers talk to Dragon, and it will take their words and turn them into text. And specifically, it's grounded in medical knowledge or grounded in lawyer knowledge. And when you use shorthand that doctors often use, it will actually expand those words out and like do some very special things. Well, I hadn't quoted Dragon in quite a while, so I asked researcher, I'm like, show me all the current versions of Dragon, show me the difference between medical and regular, show me the different microphones that are added on. And it created this whole page of all of this information. And it took me like honestly 10 minutes, but made me look like an expert in the meeting, even though, I had expertise, but it was a couple years ago, right? Was able to kind of quickly bring me up to speed. And then I was able to share that out with my team so that they could use it in the future as well. So you don't have to recreate the same work that somebody has already done. So publishing agents, like I showed, you can actually take those agents and you can link them to specific applications, right? So this is how an agent looks in the web. I just showed you that tech stack agent. That is an agent that Sean made that we then linked to our department. And now every one of us, when we log into Copilot, we see that agent there on the left-hand side. You can also link an agent to Teams. So down here, we've got Microsoft Teams, we've got our HR agent, and it's linked to a very specific group within Teams. So you can make the agents be available within different applications for all of your users to see, and they don't actually have to go into Studio or go looking for that agent. It could just be, kind of in plain sight where they're already working. So Copilot non-agent will search everything you have access to, but Copilot agents are using AI only on the data sets that align with the user's intent. So the HR agent, for example, we're saying, hey, you only have access to these PDF handbooks or this PDF policies and procedures guide. So agents are really grounded in a very specific data set, where the regular Copilot, the non-agent version of Copilot, when you're asking a question, it's really looking at all of the data that Jeff Franklin, has access to and performing that search as you, right? So then there's this concept of human in the loop. So a lot of people are afraid of AI because what if AI makes mistakes? What if it makes me look bad? What if it talks to one of my customers in the wrong way or sends the wrong data or embarrasses me in some way, right? So those are all very possible things that could happen. So we're exploring a platform called Krista.ai. And Krista has this concept of human in the loop. So what it does is when you're asking it a question or you're asking it to come up with a particular response or data set, um, it develops a confidence score. So this is the answer that I think, but also how confident am I in that answer? And if it's not confident in that answer, it has the ability to pull a human in, and you can specify who that human is to give it the answer, to help it to get to whatever the response is that you would actually want it to have, right? So let's say you build an AI agent and you say, "Hey, I want you to look at all of the firewalls that we have out at all of our customers. I want you to determine which ones are past their end of life date, and I want you to quote a replacement firewall of suitable size," which is something we're actually working on developing. Well, let's say it goes out and it's not sure if this firewall is still in use, or it finds a firewall, but it's not quite sure what model it is because it's not, somebody typoed and they put in the wrong model number or something along those lines. We can actually tell Krista, because you don't have confidence in this, go and ask Jeff, and he's going to give you the data that you need. And then as I respond to the agent, it actually helps to build its confidence over time and its ability to not need to ask me as many questions. And you can also have processes where you have a human in the loop at all times because you never want an invoice to go out to a customer incorrect. So you're going to have AI generate all of your invoices, but then you're going to always have a human that's going to look at those and send them out, or look at them and say, these are good to send out. Go ahead and do it. Right. So the system gets approval from users before acting. It learns from human input, and you can go live without having all edge cases solved and not having all of your data be perfect. So it is a good way to explore AI without it being, without your situation being perfect and your data being 100% clean. So some real world agent examples. We've already gone through a couple of these. The HR bots that we created automates onboarding, answers employee questions, learns from feedback. We can make one that does spreadsheet analysis, automate data review and reporting. So a great example today, I had a customer. We were looking at an export of Office 365 licenses. And if you ever looked at one of those exports before, it's a giant Excel spreadsheet that has all the users and unlicensed and licensed. And some people have 2 licenses, some people have 10 licenses. So I opened up Copilot and I said, "Hey, give me a summary count of all of the licenses that are currently in use." And it said, the people with this domain had this, and the people with that domain had that. And it was able to summarize all of that in a nice table for me. And actually, right in Excel, you can click on the button and it'll put it into another spreadsheet. That's another page on that same spreadsheet you're looking at. So like it'll keep that table that it returned to you as a separate thing that you can then use, manipulate, report data on in the future. So it's really great for that. I've used it for other things before, right within Excel. And one thing that's kind of neat is if you want to learn, you can actually ask the Copilot agent in the spreadsheet, "Hey, what would I do to find out this data? how would I sum this data? How would I transform this data? How would I count this data? And it will actually give you the formula, like the formula that it would use in that cell to do whatever you're trying to do. And then it'll ask you, do you want to apply this or not? You can hit yes or no, but it actually can teach you how to do it as well as just doing it for you, right? We made a purchasing agent. This is actually pretty cool. So we have we have a staff member who does all of our purchasing, and we order, I don't know, a couple hundred products a month. And with every single one of those POs, we get shipping information sent to us from the vendor, and it comes in an email usually. And then they go in once a day, they look at all open POs, they look at all of the emails, and they're trying to add tracking information to all of those POs, from FedEx or DHL or UPS or whatever carrier it's coming through. So we made an agent that looks at the email box for that purchasing agent, finds those tracking numbers when they come through, and automatically updates ConnectWise, which is our CRM, with all of the tracking information. So that staff member doesn't have to spend an hour a day now looking at all of these open POs and trying to figure out if there's tracking information from these vendors, have they shipped yet, and doing it. Very monotonous task. Nobody wanted to do it. Now I've got an agent that's doing it for us. Quoting agent. So we're working on building a quoting agent, generate quotes for product services based on client requests. So we're looking at two of them right now. One is for workstation replacements, and one of them is for firewalls. Those are the two most common things that we quote across our client base. And we're able to make an agent where we can say, hey, look at customer X and give me a list of all of the workstations that they have that are older than 5 years old, and divide those up into three categories for me. I want a laptop, a normal desktop, and a high performance desktop. So it looks at a list of the workstations. It says, there's 15 workstations that are older than 5 years. Five of them are laptops, three of them are regular desktops, and seven of them are high performance desktops, which are desktops with graphics cards or something for like a CAD drafting software, something along those lines. So is that something we can do manually? Absolutely. But it saves a ton of time when you're trying to generate these quotes and getting the data that you need to actually be successful. An executive assistant agent to manage emails, to manage schedules and notifications. This is really popular. We're seeing that. I use an application called Motion that does a lot of that kind of stuff. And there's, other ones out there. I'm sure you guys have seen advertisements for Fixer and Read and a variety of others. I see there's a Fireflies note taker in here right now. Those are kind of normal things that we've seen across the board. So our recommendation for customers is to form an AI exploration committee. And this is because you're going to find that a lot of your users are going to play around with AI in their own way. And it's usually better to have a set of stakeholders that are involved at looking at all of the different ways that AI could be useful for your organization and what would be required license-wise or product-wise to meet those needs. Um, because what you'll find over time, and we've got this with a lot of our clients, you've got this user that's using ChatGPT, and you've got these four that are using Grok, and you've got these people that are in Copilot, and this one's using Gemini, and then some of them have access to data and some of them don't. And you've got multiple relationships and protections and business associates agreements and all of these other things in play. Um, Having more of an understanding at the beginning and having buy-in from your leadership on what AIs are acceptable versus what are not acceptable is really important. And we have a number of customers that are starting to build acceptable use policies, HR documents around what AIs are allowed and not allowed within their organization for their end users to use. So an AI exploration committee would have an objective to initiate discussions about potential opportunities within your business. Meeting every 2 to 3 months is what we're seeing is usually a good cadence. Identifying data sources for problem solving, involved systems, necessary actions within those systems, and reviewing current workflows to find opportunities. For CIO solutions clients, we're recommending we do a 1 hour session with CIO, and we can present and lead, and we can demonstrate Copilot. We can talk about some items within the Microsoft ecosystem. We also have experience with Krista and some other AIs, so we can talk to those as well. And we found this to be a really useful starting off point for a lot of our customers. So again, if you want to do that, just reach out to your VCIO. We can work on getting it scheduled with our team. So with that, we're going to open it up to questions if we have any questions. And I don't have any open right now. Give people a minute or two to. Okay, so we've got a question here. Is CIO recommending using Copilot with Krista or using one or the other? So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. CIO is using a variety of different AIs right now to try to learn all of the positives and negatives of each one of them. What we're finding is most of our customers can benefit from Copilot alone, and Copilot can act as kind of an assistant or an administrative job function to do certain tasks, right? Krista has some advanced functionality where it can integrate with other systems. So Copilot is really grounded in the Office 365 ecosystem and in the Office applications, emails, that kind of stuff, where Krista has the ability to tie into third-party applications like ConnectWise, our ticketing system, for example, or any SQL-driven application you might have, maybe a CRM, maybe an ERP software if you guys have an ERP software, maybe accounting software if you're using something like Sage. So Krista has the ability to be more of an overall AI that's used across different applications, where Copilot is more of a grounded in Office 365. Think of it as an administrative assistant kind of function.
I might also add there too that I think it sort of depends on the use case, for um, if you're just trying to make a very basic agent, then doing that with Copilot, like the HR bot is a good example of something that is really easy to set up in Copilot and doesn't require like a specific human in the loop to give additional information. But if you're trying to do advanced things or automations or some of those things, Krista might be an option, and that's something that could come up. And depending on the use case that you have in mind, we could certainly evaluate which one would be best for you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're using Krista for the workflow where we're talking about doing the quoting because it needs to tie into a quoting application, into a data set in ConnectWise, into a variety of other things where we're using Copilot for things that are really grounded in the Microsoft ecosystem. Um, Brian said, if we're customers of CIO right now, we only have the basic access to Copilot chat. Is that correct? So it's really not a customer of CIO. It's more a customer of Microsoft 365. If you have a Microsoft 365 license for email, SharePoint, applications, any of that stuff, you likely have the basic access to Copilot. Um, so if you go to office.com and you log in with your Office 365 email account and password, you'll get that web-based version that I showed originally, where there's the chat functionality. Um, and then the other one would be an add-on license. So that would have to be something that's actually specifically purchased. I do have a question here about, is the licensing easily transferable between users? And the answer is yes. So it's like any other Microsoft 365 license where we add the license to your tenant. And let's say you say, I want, give me 5 Copilot licenses. Well, I'll add 5 Copilot licenses to our tenant. And then when you log in to the Office 365 portal, you can assign them to particular users, or we can assign them to particular users, right? So I can assign a license to Sean, I can assign a license to myself, and then we go and we explore Copilot and we find, it's not really for us. Well, now I can take my license, I can assign it to somebody else. You're stuck with the license for a year. You have no choice in that. But it's a license like any other Microsoft license where we can just assign it to somebody else, and the person who lost the license will lose the functionality. The person who gained the license will gain the functionality. And what I have seen is when you get the license assigned to you for the first time, it usually takes 2 to 3 hours. It's a little bit longer than normal. Um, but you'll kind of close Microsoft Word and Outlook and those. And when you reopen them, you'll see you now have the Copilot button up there. And when you click on it, it actually functions. So it does take a minute for it to appear, a little bit longer than some of the other Microsoft licenses do. So I don't have any other questions. We'll give it another minute or two. All right. Well, with that, thank everybody for coming. And like I said, you will get an emailed copy of this sent to you. You will also be able to find this on our website. If you go to our website, there's a whole section on webinars that has all of the webinars that we've done over the years. There's been a bunch of them. Jamie keeps that all up to date. Um, I'm expecting you'll get the email. It'll be a little bit because it takes Zoom a minute to process the video and get everything ready. But Jamie, you'll get that sent out. If you have any questions or you want to explore this a little bit more, reach out to your VCIO. If you're not a CIO customer, you're interested in becoming a CIO customer, you can also reach out to us about that. I think most of the people that are here are existing customers, though, looking at the names. Um, and yeah, I'd be happy to have an AI exploration meeting with you guys and talk through some of the opportunities for AI in the future and whether it makes sense now or later. We can help you develop a roadmap to AI, and that's something that we're doing for a lot of customers because, like I mentioned, it has access to the data that's in 365. Well, if your files are on a file server, they're not in 365, right? So we need to, in some cases, build a roadmap to getting you to an AI feature set that's going to be, that's going to have access to the right data and be able to give you the right responses that you need. So thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
so much for joining us.
Yep. Have a good day.